Morning.
Good to
Can we
see you.
can we flip the 2? Can I get the pancakes and you get the coffee? I'm not a big
I
fan of coffee.
wait, I think actually we really, I think I can do this. Watch this.
I like go, yes,
Oh,
yes.
you
That's much
made this
better.
happen. Uh-oh, now let's see if okay, are we live? Yay, we're live.
My
We
dad
are
tried to
really,
introduce
really
me to
live.
my dad tried to
Huh?
introduce me to coffee for many, many years, and it never worked. I think partially
Um,
because I remember one of the first cups of coffee I had was just pure black. No sugar, no cream,
yeah,
no whatever else you can put in there, and from that point on, I'm just like, "Nope, I'm good.
nope.
I've had my trial."
So what what do you have in the morning then?
Typically breakfast, juice,
Juice.
orange juice, mhm,
Mhm.
water. That's something that I'm trying to re-implement more of because I'm just noticing I don't drink enough water over the course of a day,
Mm.
and I spend so much time in front of the computer, and so towards the end of the day, sometimes I'll get headaches. I think a lot of it's just from dehydration. So I literally just try and drink 72-ounce bottle every morning when I wake up. But I've heard so many different routines, and I think that's one of the things, talk about insights. That's interesting is that there's so many different routines when it comes to how do you approach your morning, how do you approach your middle of the day, what do you do in the evening. I mean, I've literally heard it all. People drink ice water, people put lemon in their water, people drink coffee, people drink protein shakes, people do this, people do that, and it's just after a while, what I'm realizing is that you got to figure out what works best for you and just do that thing regardless of however many different perspectives you're surrounded by.
I think that's a
So
good outlook because, you ever have somebody so I know a lot of people do intermittent fasting, and they completely don't eat breakfast, and I feel like that could be, like, a little violation of some kind of rule, but, I'm a breakfast fan. However, I do,
yeah.
and have those times that I don't eat till later on in the day, but, man, Imma tell you what, by Saturday, pancakes it is.
I haven't had pancakes in a long time. Actually, I gotta reintroduce
Oh!
them. Yeah.
You come back through, Austin via Houston the long way. I will fix you some pancakes, right?
The long way
So, well,
longer.
yes, right? That is
The
100%
long
true.
way longer. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah, or I'll just come up to Austin and see you, so yeah, I can't wait for that. I'll never forget our first meeting together when I went up to Austin to see you off. So
Yeah, that was well, we met 2 times.
yeah,
No, no,
yeah,
no. Was that the same weekend? I'm trying to remember. The first time when we met was at that restaurant, and the second time was on a Saturday,
yeah.
and we had the call from the
We're
vegan cafe, which, probably I will have a harder time remembering that one. I remember vividly sitting at the table and Lena's like, "Next time, we're going to a different spot." It was good though, good food though.
Okay, it was, but yeah, so many other choices. But
Yeah.
anyways, okay. Well, good morning, everybody that's joining us because this is how we roll. I want you to meet Oleg Lougheed. He is the founder of Overcoming Odds, and he is just an incredible storyteller. And I can't wait to dive in some questions with you, well beyond our pancakes, of course, and see how this curiosity and you've got some new stuff going on, and I wanted
Mhm.
I wanted I wanted to be able to get you to share that with everyone because, really some incredible stuff. So I think I'll just kinda let you just roll, and talk about what made you recently you started talking about, like, reframing your story, right?
Mhm.
But I'll go back to the journey of, like, curiosity, you know?
Mhm.
So talk about that.
Well, I've realized that, and I mentioned to you before we even started this, that feedback comes in so many different ways, and sometimes it takes whatever time frame to receive. different components of that feedback, or the equation, so to speak, that one is trying to put together. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, and anyone else that's in the chat as well, I think we're all trying to find that ultimate formula for how life works based on our own terms. And what I have found is that in the past 6 years, because that's how long it's been, was 2016 was the first year when I really started to do a deep dive into exploring my own story, and more importantly, the direction that I wanted to take with the story that I've lived prior to that moment. And I realized that, A, once I became aware of the story that I was telling to myself about my past circumstances, it was not the story that I wanted to live moving forward.
Mm.
And the
Yeah.
simple truth of that is because I had viewed myself as a victim of the circumstances. And for many years, I was stuck in this question of why me? And I don't know if you've experienced this or anyone else. Like, why was I the one that was dealt this hand? Why was I the one that was meant to go through all of these different challenges and circumstances? What is the reason? And it took me 6 years to really uncover this reason. And I believe the ultimate reason why is because, A, I was meant to help myself to rewrite my own story, and B, simultaneously help other people on different paths rewrite their own. So 6 years down the road, literally, this is the first year when I think I have found the missing piece to my equation, and that's this component of curiosity. I disregarded it for many times. And there were so many people, I'm sure yourself included, Scott Mason, Nicole, Casey, and you name it, that have said you're a really curious person. And I think one of the things, and I don't know if anyone else experiences this, but whenever someone makes a good remark about you, 99% of the time, I kind of just say, okay, cool, let's move on to the next thing. Part of it had to do with the fact that I wasn't in the space to receive compliments
Mm.
or acknowledgments about who I was. So whenever people said that you were curious, I didn't really look at that as anything special, because it's something that I was already doing on a daily basis. It's like me acknowledging you for brushing your teeth. Like, you probably can be like,
Right.
okay, there's nothing special about it. I do it once in the
Yeah.
morning, I do it
Thanks for
once in
that.
the evening, right?
Right.
So it's like you don't really see that as a strength. And I
Yeah.
think this year was the first year when I really started to look at curiosity as a strength. And I kid you not, once I shifted the perspective and I started to look at it as something that is unique about who I am, that's where I started to realize that maybe this was the backbone behind the entire process of helping me rewrite my own story. And that's where I think a lot of this interest really developed. And I'm noticing that as I'm doing this work hands on, I'm also rewriting my own story. I mean, I'm rewriting my own story about what it means to be someone who's adopted. I'm
Yeah.
rewriting my own story about what it means to have attended a university that's not viewed as the top 100 prestigious university in the world, right? And so part of all these things, I'm realizing that I think the reason why many of these aspects of my identity were invisible was because of shame. I was ashamed to admit them as part of who I was. And the more that I choose to share, the more people reach out and say, you know what, me too. I attended this school and I still haven't hung up the diploma. It's still miles
Mhm.
beneath the surface in whatever box in the basement. A lot of it has to do with shame. You said it best in one of your posts, and it was, success is how you look in a mirror. I think it's the same exact thing around the things that surround us, the accomplishments, right? Am I able to hang that graduation or diploma in front of me and look at it every single day and actually acknowledge it, and not just skim it and say, okay, this happened, but more so, wow, this is what commitment and pursuit and dedication really looks like. 4 years of going to classes, dealing with the times when I did skip class, right? When I was sick, all these things, and still choosing to come back and do it again. So this is what gets me fired up in the mornings, is just knowing that it is possible to rewrite one story. I'm a huge believer that it does boil down to a story. We all tell our story. We all tell a stories every single day. The story
Mhm.
of why we're here, right?
Mhm.
However many months ago or weeks ago, you told yourself a story that I'm going to build this, regardless if people come or not. And then from there, see what happens. So that is my breakfast insight and my breakfast fuel. Long story longer.
What? I knew it was gonna happen. You know, I tell you, the thing about shame, uh, with the adoptee portion of that, there was a word that we've talked about before, and, the word was orphan, and before
Mm,
because you were an orphan and then an adoptee, and, I was thinking, we're both adoptees, but it's like, but are you an orphan before you're not? What does that
mm.
look like? And orphan, I think, is different, and so I wanted you to touch on that. I wanted you to say, what is your thought when you hear orphan? How does that make you feel? And what's your first thought about that?
Initially, I think if you would have asked me this however many years ago, I would have had a completely different definition for it. And that's, I would have painted it through the lens of someone who was not wanted, someone who didn't have parents, someone who didn't have someone to believe in them. Now I'm finding that the term, and I've worked on this for many years to redefine it on my own terms, and I found that even though it's still an, I guess you could say, an active component of who I am, just based on my own past, but it's no longer the only thing that defines me. And that's what I'm finding as part of this whole journey, is that a lot of these things are labels, and the cool part about it is that you get to assign the meaning to them, right? A good friend of mine, Chris Keys, he gave me this bracelet. It's called "It's Just Information," and that's literally how I started to look at life. Everything surrounding me, the people, how I interact with them, how they interact with me, it's all just information for me to decide how I'm going to react to whatever it is that it's in front of me. Orphan, adoptee, entrepreneur, business owner, nonprofit owner, speaker, all these things, those are all just labels that I am choosing to be a part of my identity. It's all just information. So I think orphan, I think it's the same exact way. Now, are there certain terms that carry different types of emotions with them? Absolutely. Orphan is one of them, right? Because this is how my life started. That was the very
Mhm.
first chapter to my book. And then from there, I was able to add all these other chapters. So there is a deeper and a different type of emotion that's associated with that term, because it's the time when I didn't feel like I was wanted. It's a time where I was fighting to bring the family back together, and nothing seemed to work after a while. So now I'm realizing that it doesn't have to be, I don't have to look at it through the same exact lens that I looked at it 5 or 10 or 15 years ago. And I think that's the ultimate difference that I'm finding as part of all of this. Same thing with being adopted, right? I know many, many people through this journey who have shared their story with me that feel like they're not wanted, that feel like they were a mistake, that feel like the reason why they were adopted is X, Y, and Z. And look, I can't speak for anyone else's journey. It might be true. Because at the end of the day,
Yeah.
the only truth is the one that you're willing to accept, right? And that's one thing that I'm finding really interesting about my own part of life. And I don't know if you're in a similar space, and that's how I choose to project the information onto other people. I really am starting to become more cautious of what information do I choose to share with other people, and what feedback or advice do I choose to give them in return. And I think a lot of it has to do with my own inner belief that I believe all of us have whatever we need and whatever it takes to find whatever answers that we're looking for. I'm really not in the right space to come into your life and say, hey, You need to do this. At the end of the day, like, what do I know? Right? And if anything, what I'm sharing is might be something that I'm needing to do. Casey Berman once told me, he said, we teach others what we need to learn ourselves. It's so true.
It is so true. It is so true. That's why we have those long, 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 and longer conversations, solving all the problems.
Well, people are
One of
people are
our
very fortunate that they're not actually able to tune into one of our phone calls. Man, as soon as we
that
think
is
it's gonna take 5 to 10 minutes, I don't think there has been a single phone call that hasn't lasted an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. Typically,
no,
it's me
I don't think
walking one dog, coming back, walking the other dog, coming back, getting onto the computer, then we're on Zoom, then we're changing something, so simultaneously we're on the phone and doing Zoom. It's really cool, but it also brings up a really interesting point for me, and I don't know the ultimate reason why you even started this, but I'm finding that life is short. And what I mean by that is, and I'm just starting to kind of realize this more and more, is that time really does go by really fast,
yeah,
especially as I age. And conversations like this or people like you, for me, that's really what it's all about at the end of the day, right? Creating your own story along the side with someone else that you respect and look up to, someone who actually believes in you and wants to see you succeed in whatever way that you're choosing to define success on your own terms. That to me is special. Like that to me is ultimately what it's all about. It's people connecting with other people, like all the people in the chat, right?
yeah,
I haven't met
we get a
many
lot.
of the people, but I have met quite a few, and that's what it's ultimately about for me, is how can we be there for one another in whatever way that we have to be there and really not expect anything more or anything less, but just show up as who we are. That's why, going back
Yeah,
to the point of feedback, that's why it's taken 6 years. It's taken 6 years for some relationships to be like, okay, maybe I can tell him the truth now. Maybe I don't have to tell him exactly what he wants to hear. Maybe I should just tell him how I feel. And
yeah,
oftentimes, that is exactly what I've been looking for.
right. I know you like when we go over those stuff and it's like, "No, that's terrible." And we end up laughing about it because it's like, "Oh, yeah, it's good." Or we're like, "Oh, man, we are great." We pat ourselves on the back a lot too in a good way, have fun with it. So,
Mm,
I can truly relate to that. I think you have, you give a lot of reasons to think about real insight, right? Real thoughts about yourself, how to reflect different come with poor me or any kind of thing like that. But you acknowledge that there's times that that can happen, and how to how to kind of get beyond that, and be
mm.
more firm and leave you know uh, I think it sounds like it took your past a lot of shame and feelings to the point of accepting that kind of feedback, that maybe there was a time when people didn't have the confidence to give you harsh feedback or direct feedback,
Mm.
that you reacted to it differently. So do you think that you've grown to accept direct, or like just raw feedback about anything?
I think to a degree I have. I'll also say that it's still a learning process for me. And the reason why is because, as I mentioned to you earlier, feedback can come from literally anyone. And most times it comes in situations where you don't even ask it, right? My late uncle, he said it best: opinions are like assholes. Everyone has one, right? And 99% of the time, or 100% of the time,
Right.
people will give you an opinion whether you ask it or not. So, how am I when it comes to feedback? I think in most situations, I'm able to accept it. Now, there are certain situations that takes a little bit longer to process, And I'll give you an example. About a week ago, I connected with this one person, and she was giving me feedback about kind of my own story and the framework that I've been putting together in regard to this concept or program for rewriting of one story. And I found that in writing the description, and you and I even worked on this together, I started with a more general view as far as speaking to you as an audience member. Then I went back to my own story and the things that were able to get me to this point. And I found that as part of that process, in going back to my own personal story and thinking that, well, this is the thing that got me here, therefore, this is the thing that it's going to get me there, it didn't really serve a purpose. I was falling back into an old space that, yes, it served a purpose back then, but it's really not serving a purpose right now. Now, how was I able to get to that point? Through feedback. Because as soon as I shared this with her, she just told me straight up, no, this is a complete stranger. This is the type of person who doesn't have the same level of trust that, let's say, you and I have or Scott and I have. And so she just told me to me, she said, do you feel like a part of you is still reliving that victim story? And I had to look hard in the mirror and think to myself, you know what? She's probably right. I'm a huge believer that within any and every statement, there's a grain of truth. Now, the tricky part
Mm.
becomes, what is that grain of truth? How do you figure it out? So, in her words, at first, I thought it was an attack on my identity. And then literally, I slept through it.
Mhm.
And I woke up in the morning and I said, why did I feel that way? Why were my feelings so strong? Why was my reaction so strong to what she had said? And part of it had to do with the fact that I still identified as X, Y, and Z. So I went
Yeah.
back to the drawing board. I rewrote it completely. And I started with the simple question of who are you and what is your story? What is the story about your
Mhm.
past? What is the story about the future you that you're wanting to write? What is holding you back? Is it your past? Is it the feelings of whatever might have happened to you? Is it the mindset that you have on a daily basis about those circumstances? And so, in a way, I think I wrote the description for me. I wrote that description for me as a reminder that, yes, these were the things that I experienced, but this is not the story that I'm wanting to tell moving forward. I'm like, now I understand why so many people, and the first person that comes to mind is Gary Vee. This was many, many years ago. I came across one of his videos, and he was talking about his own past. And he
Mhm.
said,
Mhm.
he literally summarized his past in 2 to 3 sentences. And now I understand why a lot of people do that. A lot of people tell the past as a way to create context for the story. They don't create it as something to focus on for the entire duration of their story. And I think Les Brown said it another way. He said, I'm less interested in where I was, I'm more interested in where I'm going.
Mhm.
I'm more interested in what I'm doing with the past and the lessons learned and the opportunities to grow rather than reliving a lot of those moments and then thinking that this is the life that I'm wanting to create moving forward. So, long story longer, feedback. Feedback, it's taken me some time.
Mm.
It's taken me some time
Yeah.
to really accept. And how I'm able to do it now is I really don't try to personalize it. I am a huge believer of just give it to me straight. How you see it, what you see, because at the end of the day, what you see is most likely not what I see, right? When
Yeah.
you're so ingrained in the story, in the process, you only see it through that lens. And now I'm finding that, in my opinion, it's really rare to have candid and honest conversations. It's really rare for me to say, Lena, here's what I actually think about this. Here's what I actually think about this show. I'm kidding. I do
Yeah.
I think great things about this, but just coming into it and saying, here are my thoughts, and you did this
Yeah.
perfectly when we rewrote the thing. I mean, I don't want to quote you word for word, but I think one of the words you said, this sucks, and I said, okay, this is good
Yeah.
because that's what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for a pat on the
Mhm.
back, even though that still
Yeah.
has value, but I'm more so looking
Yeah.
for how can we improve this? How can we move forward? Because the only reason why I'm coming to you is because I'm thinking and I'm feeling that what I have done is somewhat incomplete. It's missing a perspective, it's missing an insight. So, how do we get to that? And I think really the ultimate way to get to that is from a point of honesty and transparency. This is where we're at,
Yeah.
this is what we're dealing with. How do we move forward? And so I used to get hung up on that for so many years. When people give me the
Yeah.
feedback, I would ask them for feedback. They give me the
Yeah.
feedback, and I get mad at them for giving me the feedback. How could you say that? What do you mean? When
Yeah.
really at the end of the day, they're just words. They're neutral. I choose to assign meaning to them, right?
Mhm.
Long
Do you
story
think the
enough.
value in and then no, do you think the value in feedback, we'll say per se, really it sounds like there's some discerning there for it's great from random people, I guess, in one sense, but the honesty you said and the transparency behind it really comes to people that they not only will be honest and transparent, but they're also going to be maybe that cushion for you, that safe space that you're going to know when I do come to them and I do want that. Like, I mean, our friendship is like crazy. I'd like get in a car
Mm,
and drive there in 5 minutes if you needed something. So it's like, but
mm.
you also know I'll say it sucks, right? So do you feel like that is the difference of really valid, or feeling valid with what you're getting back, whether it's like a fee, right? And knowing that it's like, okay, well, this I trust and I'm confident in laying it all out. And this is where what you're talking about, people give two or three contexts about
Mm.
whatever they're doing, maybe protecting getting unwanted opinion, comment, or feedback about it. Long story
Well,
question.
I think there are two things. I think first is that at the end of the day, what I'm finding is that when it comes to feedback or when it comes to whatever it is that I'm doing, it has to fulfill a fundamental human need of mine, and that's to be seen, to be heard, and to be valued. And I think that whole journey of those three components starts with me. People outside of me, that's external validation. They can help boost the morale around those things, but they can't ultimately give me that thing, that feeling, that understanding of what it means to see myself for who I am, what it means to hear myself for what I say, and what it means to value myself for the ultimate person that I'm being. So I think that's the first part. And I think the second part, when it comes to the value, is I think yes and no when it comes to receiving it from a tribe or people who are close to you. And I'll give you another example, right? So a couple days ago, one of the things of being someone in my role is that like I started to meet different people through dating apps and whatever else. And I kid you not, when we put this description together, right? I was talking to this one person that I met through a dating app, and I just sent her. I said, "You know what? Not that you were looking for this, but what do you think?" And she responds back. She's like, "This is probably the most random thing I've ever received from someone that I've actually never met in life, but I'll give you my feedback." She gave me her thoughts. So I think at the end of the day, what that particular situation taught me is that there have been so many times throughout my life where I created a story in my head for why I
Mhm,
can't ask someone for help. Oh, they don't know
mhm,
me. They're going to think differently of me. This is going to change their relationship. We're no longer going to be friends. Who am I going to be to them afterwards? So I think most of the time, whoever said it, they truly said it best. And that's you are the obstacle. I genuinely believe that. You are the obstacle
yeah,
within your own story, right? We don't ask for
right.
help. Why? Do you truly feel the way that I feel when I ask you for help? Especially when it comes to help in finances. I found that,
Yeah.
and the only reason why I say that is because I've been there. I've been the individual where I had to ask other people for financial assistance, right? starting from people closest to me to complete strangers. And what I found as part of that journey is that money is one of the hardest topics to talk about.
Right.
But
Right.
a lot of the reason why I didn't choose to ask until literally the last minute is because of the story that I created for in my head about what is this person going to think of me? Is this going to change the trajectory of our relationship? Are they going to talk about me? Are they going to view me differently? And 99% of the time, if not 100, none of those things were true. None of those assumptions were true. Most times when I ask, people are like, I'm
Yeah.
really glad you asked. Here. Or, you know what? I can't help you, but I might know someone else who can. So it's fascinating to me going back to the stories that we create for ourselves, right? The assumptions that we build a lot of
Right.
this narrative on. I can't build a business. No one's going to want my product. There are 8 billion people in this world. I highly doubt that there's not a single other individual who resonates with you, regardless of what you do. Even if the business is not the most of ethical choices. I mean, look at that. There's still people who choose to subscribe to models like that. So to me, it's
Yeah.
just, it really is that simple and it's that complex. What is the story that you are telling yourself? What is the story that you are convinced in about whatever it is that you are trying to accomplish in this world? You know, you're starting a new career. Man, I'm never going to get a
Yeah.
job. Is that really the truth? Or is it only true because you're choosing to believe it's true?
Right.
Are there truly no opportunities available for employment? Or is that just simply the scenario that you're creating in your own head? I'm never going to be able to get on stage as a speaker, or I'm never going to be able to start this at the age that I'm in. The good part about all of it is that there are plenty of other people who are in similar age groups that I'm sure you can relate with. In fact, think about it. Most of us are able to relate to at least one other person.
Sure.
Isn't that enough to start a ripple effect? Because what if that person is able to relate to 100 people? And that
Right.
100 people is able to relate to 1,000 people.
Yeah.
Once again, long story longer, completely lost the point from where we started it, but I think it was something along the lines of what we just repeated.
Yeah. It was it was good. I mean, we still have people on, so it was good. Yeah,
And
no,
Jason said
I
it
think we
best.
could, like,
We tend to
um
put ourselves in a box and do not look past it. It's so true, though.
past. Mhm. Yes, yes, for sure. I concur. You know, that is probably one of my million favorite things about you is that you've created many talks and,
Mm,
groups and curated that kind of ability to have those kind of conversations in safe space and all, and, now you're taking that and growing that, and you've got
mm.
some things in the works. You know, I don't wanna let you go before you, at least share that. I'm so excited for you, and I'm, on the journey with you, and so talk about that real quick, and I'll say goodbye here, but talk about but talk about that, and, so we can know how to follow this journey, what you're gonna be able to what you're providing, the new things that are getting
Mm.
ready to launch. So, for people to connect with you.
Well, something that I'm launching right now, and you've actually been a huge help in a lot of this, is putting together a 12-week program for people to rewrite their own story. And the name of it is called Curiosity, the key to rewriting your own story. So I'm a huge believer, as I mentioned for the past half hour, how much curiosity has played a role in my life. And so part of what all of this includes is simultaneously taking myself on a journey as well as the other people. And that's finding ways to use curiosity in order to let go of shame, to shift from judgment to curious. Think about the number of times I can think of the number of times where I choose judgment instead of curiosity first, right? Creating assumptions instead of being curious. Well, why do they think that way? Why has it happened in X, Y, and Z way? instead of creating this narrative once again in my head that I choose to believe in and subscribe to for however many days after that. So part of what all of this includes is this journey that I'm able to take with other people. Now, you mentioned the fact that all these other things that were created before, like the Saturday calls, which anyone can also attend, called Courageous Conversations, that free of charge, happen every single Saturday. And the principle and the concept is very simple: show up as who you are, be seen, be heard, be valued for the person that you are, and share what it is that you believe about life. Now, every weekend, there's a topic. And what I found through that particular space that I'm going to take into this next space is the power of being able to be open to different perspectives and the ability to shift your own perspective through those perspectives, right? Because at the end of the day, no matter how much may want to believe that I know the answers to your questions, I don't. What I do know is I have the ability through 500, maybe 1,000 or 10,000 hours by now to create a space, where you can be vulnerable, where you can be who you are, where you can experience your own aha moments, and ultimately where you can change your own story to a story that you would want to live. Scott Mason once told me, we were talking, and he said, "What is the story that you're hoping to create?" And I said, "At the end of the day, I'm hoping to create a narrative that I believe and like in, period." And I think a lot of us, in my opinion, are trying to do the same exact thing, whether it's with our business, whether it's with our significant others, whether it's with
Yeah.
our own selves. It's
Yeah.
all boiling down to the journey, to the story that you're wanting to create. So, long story longer, once again, I would say the best way that people can learn more about this, the best way that people can connect with me is obviously on LinkedIn. That is the first place that people can go and just connect with me, regardless of whether or not you want to
Uh-huh.
be a part of this program, but just connect to share what resonated with you, connect to share different ways that I might be able to support you along your journey. And then outside of that is through the website, and that's overcomingodds.today. That's where you'll be able to find the podcast and everything that we do. You were a guest on it as well as the Saturday space. So I thank you for this, and thank you for switching the dishes at the beginning. I truly enjoyed these pancakes. I think that coffee would have still been full as it is right now.
You're welcome. Thanks so much for time. I mean, it's kind of funny doing live together, but a blast, for sure. And I think it's from the comments, it seems like a lot of people got some good things out of it. Want to appreciate, let's see, give some shout outs here before I let you go. If, um, Dimitri and and, and thanks so much for put your website in the comments so they can connect
Hmm.
with you. And I can't wait to come home, my friend, and get to again. And you're just I'll just gush about how much you mean to me, and so thankful to have you in my life and all the things. You are my just one of my most dearest friends. So I can't wait till you guys, y'all don't know, this is short talk for us today. So considering, right? So, anyways, you have a
Considering the
wonderful day
typical hour and a half.
and and yeah, right. And I will be talking to you again soon. So again, thank you so much for this time and space, and we'll chat
No,
soon.
thank you. Yeah, thank you for doing what you do.